In the headlines, 3 American detainees in North Korea call for Washington's help in unprecedented interviews with CNN. NATO says it's responding to the Ukraine crisis by creating a spearhead rapid reaction force. And the FBI and Apple say they're investigating a security breach after a massive leak of iCloud data unleashed intimate pictures of dozens of celebrities.
Welcome to Primetime News, everyone. Live from Seoul, I'm Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us tonight. We start with the growing attention over Pyongyang's foreign relations. Diplomatic sources say North Korea will send an envoy to Europe later this week.
That's right, and this trip coincides with a visit by North Korean foreign minister to New York later in the month, raising speculation Pyongyang is speeding up efforts to re-engage with the international community. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
A possible trip to Europe by a seasoned North Korean diplomat is drawing further attention to Pyongyang's recent diplomatic overture. Kang Sok-ju, secretary of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, will reportedly visit Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Italy starting late this week. Given his status in North Korea, Kang's trip may serve a specific purpose.
Kang Sok-ju is the point man when it comes to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. For the past 25 years. Kang Sok-ju's presence in Europe can be also understood as North Korea expanding its diplomatic effort to make progress with regard to its nuclear stance and missile programs with European countries and potentially with the United States.
Unconfirmed reports say senior U.S. officials visited North Korea last month on a military aircraft. North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong will be in New York City for the UN General Assembly that begins on September 24th. Speculation is ripe Pyongyang and Washington may revive their dormant communication channels, and Europe has been the site of secret meetings between the two countries in the past. Kang may also lead high-level talks with Japan during his stay in Switzerland. His visit coincides with a seminar on the Japanese abduction issue slated for September 10th in Geneva, which senior Japanese officials are expected to attend. As Pyongyang takes strides to re-engage with Washington and Tokyo, some say Seoul could ultimately be the one left out of the diplomatic circle. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And in another sign that Pyongyang wants to open up lines of communication with Washington, the regime allowed 3 American detainees in North Korea to speak to CNN. Watchers say North Korea is using the media to bring Washington back to the negotiating table. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
In an exclusive interview with CNN, the 3 American detainees said they were being treated humanely, but that they hoped Washington would soon help them return home. Kenneth Bae, serving a 15-year sentence for alleged hostile acts to overthrow the North Korean government, said he was doing hard labor 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. His diabetes, high blood pressure, and kidney stones have worsened, having gone back and forth between the hospital and the labor camp for the past 18 months. Asking the U.S. government to send an envoy to win their release, Bae said his only hope is returning home and seeing his family again. Matthew Todd Miller, awaiting trial after he ripped up his tourist visa and sought asylum in the North, said Washington, which often promotes its priority of protecting U.S. citizens, wasn't doing enough to help him. Jeffrey Edward Fowle, soon to stand trial after leaving a Bible at his hotel in the communist state, urged CNN to let the world know more about his predicament. Having no diplomatic relations with North Korea, the U.S. government's only contact with the men is through the Swedish embassy in Pyongyang. Stressing there is no greater priority than the welfare and safety of Americans abroad, the State Department urged Pyongyang to grant Kenneth Bae amnesty in light of his poor health. North Korea's strategic use of the media to seek dialogue with the U.S. is increasing pressure on the Obama administration ahead of the midterm elections in November. Now the question is whether Washington will send a former president or a prominent political figure, as it has in the past, to broker the detainees' release, and if that could lead to a resumption of dialogue between the U.S. and the North. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye has pressed North Korea to come forward for talks. Speaking at an event with members of the National Unification Advisory Council, President Park said that the South Korean government has proposed talks on several occasions, and now it's time for Pyongyang to open the closed door. The president reiterated that both sides need dialogue to build trust in order to achieve a peaceful unification, which she said is the most valuable asset that can be passed down to the next generation.
Despite the deadlock in the National Assembly, the government and the ruling Seoul Party have tentatively agreed to increase next year's budget by 5%. That would put the budget at around $370 billion, which is lower than the 6% increase government ministries and agencies had requested, and much lower than the 10% spike analysts had been expecting when the new economic team rolled out its stimulus measures in July. Welfare programs stand to see the biggest budget increase, accounting for more than 30% of the total budget for the first time. The government and the ruling party plan on finalizing the budget by the end of next month before putting it up for legislative approval. The rapidly changing e-banking environment, along with the financial sector's efforts to maximize profitability, have prompted banks around the country to cut down on the number of their physical branches. Song Ji-sun tells us how some 270 have disappeared within the past year and which customers are prompting this change.
1 out of every 20 bank branches have closed down over the past year. As of the end of July, the total number of bank branches in Korea stood at just over 5,100, down 5% from a year earlier. That's the biggest decrease in 17 years. The 1997 Asian financial crisis that folded 5 small-sized banks and shuttered nearly 8,000 branches triggered a chain of murders among Korean banks. The move was followed by major restructuring that closed down more branches, and internet banking and automation have further reduced their number.
Only 11% of all money transfers were made through counters at the bank branches, with the rest handled through computers, smartphones, ATMs, or telephones.
Leading the trend are people in their 20s and 30s, many of whom say they only visit the bank when they need help with online banking.
I go to banks once every 3 months or so, only to get a new authentication card, but I use mobile banking almost every day. There's no need to carry much cash around these days, and I can do money transfers instantly on my smartphone.
Such changes led to a reduction in workforce in the industry. Major banks in Korea such as KB, Shinhan, Hana, Korea Exchange, Standard Chartered, and Citibank reduced their workforce by an average of 3% last year. The umbrella group of banking labor unions has called for a one-day strike on Wednesday by bank employees to back their demand of ensuring employment. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Korea is putting the brakes on its push towards an emission-free auto market amid mounting pressure from local and global automakers. The Korean government says that it will delay carrying out its scheme to cut carbon emission by 5 years until the end of 2020. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-won said the plan places too much of a burden on automakers and car buyers while having little impact on reducing carbon emissions. The system would charge consumers who purchase vehicles with high carbon emissions while giving incentives to those who buy eco-friendly models. But the government says it's still carrying out an emission trading system starting next year and also expanding subsidies for hybrid and electric cars. The concept of the so-called sharing economy has been around for quite some time now around the world. Although a late starter, Korea's peer-to-peer marketplace is also growing quickly. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports on what the sharing economy looks like here.
Green Car is a car-sharing service founded in 2011 that makes it easier for people to lend out cars at low prices. It's one of the most prominent examples of the sharing economy in Korea, in which people become more like users than owners of assets. Around 240,000 people have used this service so far. All it takes is a few taps on a smartphone application.
It's really easy to use this car sharing service. It's only $3 for using this Avante model for 30 minutes.
Users are instantly updated on what kind of vehicles are available in one of the so-called green zones, locations where people can pick up and drop off their vehicles after they're done using them. There are 700 green zones throughout the country, and so it takes just 10 minutes by foot on average to reach one. Green Car Marketing and Communications Director Hwang Sung-hee says that technological developments have allowed the convergence of the appropriate hardware and software, providing the best platform for the car-sharing service.
The technological advances make it easier for us to operate as platform providers for vehicles. GPS allows us to track where the vehicles are and who's using them, and through the smartphone application, users can easily lock and unlock the cars they wish to use.
Companies like Green Car are using their sharing economy to find ways to utilize idle assets and providing a platform to make them more resourceful. Kim Jeong, Arirang News.
Chris, top 3 entertainment agencies scored big in the first half of this year as they diversified their business models targeting the East Asian market. JYP Entertainment sales in the first 6 months of this year soared the most, jumping nearly threefold on year, followed by YG Entertainment at 28% and SM Entertainment at 20%. JYP saw its first surplus in 3 years from strong sales in the Japanese market. And YG, which backs global acts Psy and Big Bang, cashed in big in concert ticket sales in Japan. SM continued to get a boost in its stronghold countries like China and Hong Kong.
So you heard about the 1 trillion won investment from this tech venture capital fund called Yozma Fund yesterday, right?
Right, and this tech fund, or this actually just a venture capital pool, is attracting a lot of attention along with Google, who is trying to invest in a lot of startups right here in the country with a new campus
right here.
Seoul campus.
Exactly, in Samsung-dong in Seoul. And actually, we're going to talk more about that with Simon Lee, CEO of Pluto, joining us right here in the studio. Thanks for coming in today. And your firm is actually one of the startups that actually enjoyed this startup fostering environment in London by Google campus in London. So do share your firm's experience there.
Well, the time we got to spend in the Google campus London was very rewarding. You know, we were dealing with the language translation service, so we could meet all different people around the world who use different languages, and we could get feedbacks from them. And also we could meet a lot of mentors and IT specialists who could actually teach us how to run our business. And so I can definitely say it was very rewarding.
So you just walked into this Google campus with just an idea, or did you have a team already set with you?
So I had 2 other co-founders, and we just had an idea. So we sent our idea to Google campus, and they admitted our idea. They thought it was great.
And your idea is now in operation, right? You just celebrated your 2-year anniversary of your company. Can you show us a little bit about like what's the product of this Google campus?
You mean our product?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the translation. You know, the translation is divided into 2. One is auto translation, the other one is professional translation. So for professional translation market, it's very expensive, and you got to wait like 24 hours. And auto translation market is very cheap, but it's inaccurate. But using our platform is very fast and accurate and cost effective.
So people just punch in what they need to be translated on their smartphone, and then it comes back within minutes.
Within seconds, right.
Within seconds, and they pay for this, and the people who translate also get some sort of incentive.
Compensation.
As well.
Right.
So you went through this program in London, you spent some time in San Francisco at the Google headquarters. Why did you choose to come back to Korea? What about the Korean startup market do you think is attracting Google?
Well, you know, what I think is just like I see a lot of young Korean people with innovative ideas around me. And what I think is the reason why Google and Yosma, you know, are making huge investment in Korea is that the market and the entrepreneurs in that region matter to them.
Okay. What do you think about Korean startups? So what's their relative strength compared to other countries? Did you ever think about that? No?
Well, very smart. You know, Koreans are very smart, you know, and all the technologies they're building up is amazing. You know, it's like there's like 4G LTE everywhere.
But recently, the head of Yosma Fund said in a recent interview that Korean startups, yes, they do have the potential, but they didn't really get to globalize enough to go big enough. Do you agree with him? What do you think of some of the challenges ahead for Korean startups?
So these days, what I think is like there's no challenges ahead for like Korean startups only. You know, the challenges ahead of Korean startups are like the challenges ahead of all startups. Yeah, everyone.
So not anybody can start a startup and be successful at it. What would you recommend for people who are budding entrepreneurs in this field who want to apply to the Google Seoul campus?
Just, you know, what I can say is just go for it. Just have a global mindset and build their service first and try to make it as nice as they can. And, you know, the Google campus is like Google, you know, they have a huge global network. So you got to think about like expanding your market globally before you get into Google campus. So focus on your product.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, and best wishes on your venture.
Yeah, thank you for inviting. Thank you.
In light of the ongoing military conflict between Ukraine and Russia, NATO is taking measures to ensure that a similar situation does not occur in other parts of the region.
With more, we turn to Son Jung-in at the News Center. Jung-in, what's the backdrop of this latest development?
Well, the move comes as a government in Kiev, which has accused Moscow of launching a great war, asks the NATO for help to avoid further breakdown in the area. The military alliance has announced plans to launch a rapid response force backed by thousands of troops. Connie Kim reports with more.
NATO's plan to form a spearhead force of thousands of troops to protect its 28 member nations is widely expected to be approved during the NATO summit in Wales on Thursday. Although the ultimate size of the rapid response force has not been decided, senior officials at NATO say it will consist of an estimated 4,000 troops that could be deployed to an alliance state within 48 hours. It's designed to stave off a future crisis like the one unfolding in eastern Ukraine, where government forces are engaged with pro-Russian rebels. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said the task force would be trained to counter attacks by unidentified armed assailants, tactics NATO says pro-Russian separatists are employing against Ukrainian troops. It's a type of action that Ukraine and Baltic state members have been calling for since Russia annexed Crimea in March. There were questions about what type of measures NATO could take, considering the 1997 NATO-Russia Founding Act prohibits NATO from stationing soldiers in Eastern and Central Europe permanently. NATO officials say it'll rotate its combat forces in the Baltic states, which would not violate the treaty. NATO's move aims to stop a repeat of Russia's incursion in Ukraine, which President Petro Poroshenko has said is headed toward a great war of the likes Europe has yet to see. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And on to the latest internet security threat. Intimate photos from hundreds or more than 100 celebrities, mostly female, have been leaked online, and it's raised major concerns. The FBI says it is, quote, addressing the matter, while Apple, whose iCloud storage service is under suspicion for being the hacked network, says it's also investigating the case as it takes user privacy very seriously. Our Yurian has the details.
Nude photos of Oscar-winning actress Jennifer Lawrence and pop star Rihanna were among the private photos of celebrities that turned up on the website 4chan. A spokesperson for Lawrence confirmed the authenticity of the images and slammed the hackers for a flagrant violence of privacy and vowed to prosecute anyone who shared the images online. Actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who also had her intimate photos leaked, criticized the people who posted and viewed her photos and said they were taken in privacy of her and her husband's home. The anonymous user who leaked the photos claimed they were obtained from Apple's iCloud accounts, sparking fears about the safety and security of the service. When activated, the iCloud service automatically uploads photos, emails, and contacts on your smartphone to multiple electronic devices, including tablet PCs and laptops. Apple released a brief statement on Monday saying it takes user privacy seriously and is currently actively investigating the report. If the hackers are caught, they could serve some major jail time. Christopher Cheney, who was found to have leaked nude photos of celebrities like Scarlett Johansson, was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. Yurian, Arirang News.
And finally, over in Japan, where the country is suffering from worsening cases of dengue fever in almost 70 years, the number of confirmed people infected with the virus has been surging since the outbreak began last week, with the figure now reaching at least 34 people. All of them are believed to have fallen ill after they were bitten by mosquitoes in the popular Yoyogi Park in central Tokyo, where health authorities have sprayed 800 liters of pesticides in hopes of killing off mosquito colonies. These are the first known domestic cases of the mosquito-borne disease to hit the country since World War II. Japan's health ministry said none of the sick are in critical condition and called for a calm public response. Dengue fever is not contagious, but is transmitted by the bite of an infected mosquito and can cause symptoms such as severe headaches, muscle pain, and mild fever. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow evening.
Hello and welcome to sports. Kicking things off with North Korea's participation in the Incheon Asian Games. They've informed the South that their athletes will fly across the border from Thursday next week. Seoul's Unification Ministry received a letter early Tuesday via the Inter-Korean hotline, which detailed the North's plans regarding the Games, including the transport of its 273-member delegation. 6 groups will fly in through the West Sea route, starting with the first one on the 11th. And that's just over a week before the Asian Games open on September 19th. And next up, a quick update from the FIVB Men's Volleyball World Championship. In their first matchup, South Korea came back from a set down to beat Tunisia 3-1 to stand second in Pool B to Brazil, who blanked Germany 3-0. They face Finland on Wednesday. Now shifting over to baseball, 2 games were rained out, but 2 were in action. Let's get to the game of the night between the NC Dinos and the Samsung Lions. Now NC has Charlie Shrek on the mound, Samsung, J.D. Martin. Now we go to the second inning. NC's Eric Thames gets to second base, and later Lee Jong-wook brings him home. Then Itaewon, he adds 2 more. It's 3-0 NC. Now we go to the next inning. Martin comes off and Chao Chan comes in. Now the 4th inning, Samsung's Lee Seung-yup, he's at bat, and error brings one home and Lee comes in later. Now next frame, they blow it all open with 4 runs, but NC eventually ties it all up, and right now it's tied 6-6 in the top of the 9th inning. And looking at the other games, Hanwha and SK have their games. Their game is tied right now, 7-7 in the 8th inning. The rains delayed the game there. Meanwhile, Nexon and LG and Tusan and Kia had their games rained out. And finally, to the U.S. Open, a blockbuster quarterfinal clash is set as world number 1 Novak Djokovic and 8th seed Andy Murray emerge victorious from the 4th round. Both one-time U.S. Open winners, they face their toughest opponents yet in each other. Djokovic incredibly reaches his 22nd consecutive Grand Slam quarterfinal, but it's Murray who has the edge at Flushing Meadows, having won the 2012 title there against the Serb in an epic final. They meet on Wednesday at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Chet. Your weather updates are up next.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. We're getting autumn showers here in Seoul. Also, both Jeollado provinces and Chungcheongdo provinces are getting heavy downpours of about 20 millimeters per hour. Brace yourselves for another 50 to 100 millimeters of precipitation, and some regions, including Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, could get more than 150 millimeters. Now, this doesn't come as a surprise, as pre-heavy rainfall advisories have been issued for some parts of the central regions as well as southern coastal areas, while a preliminary strong wind watch is in effect for the western coastal regions. Now we're in for another round of torrential rain accompanied by stormy conditions, so make sure to gear up for the harsh weather. On to Wednesday's ratings. Seoul hits 22 degrees while cities down south hover around 25. On to other places. Daejeon and Dokdo make it to the mid-20s while Kumgang to 20. Well, make sure to have an umbrella with you if you're headed out for a late night trip. That's all for now. Have a lovely evening.
That's Primetime News for this Tuesday. I'm Sean Lim. Have a great evening.
And I'm Kang Chery. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.